Hello, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Realm Rock channel. So today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about a little bit of Bitcoin, and we're going to talk about a little bit of what's going to happen to global market recently. So it will be a little bit of wrap up. So in future, I'll be doing this kind of market wrap up on a weekly basis in both language, Chinese and English. So hopefully, you guys can enjoy and be able to somehow guide your trading. So, okay, so let's just jump right to the content. Okay, as I have been saying, Bitcoin has tumbled to $40,000 all the way to its lowest since 5 months. And I kept telling these to my clients, a lot of my clients, because uh, um, I did a lot of consulting job for corporate, like big companies, exchanging, etc. My opinion was that Bitcoin would have a short-term big price suppress, and obviously $40,000 is a key support. If that kind of price level um, cannot hold for any longer, we're going to see Bitcoin drops even further. So we're going to see Bitcoin price even plummet even more. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin is somehow a bubble. And I don't view Bitcoin price as a bubble. I view Bitcoin as an alternative asset that you can invest. It's more of like a speculative assets, and a lot of people put their money in because it's like they want to speculate in this market, and they will have a function of money laundering and etc. All these over-the-counter payment. A lot of Bitcoin and crypto traders, uh, they helped a lot of money laundering issue. They helped those guru. These big financial titans. Sometimes mafia to move money around in a financial system. So as that kind of alternative asset, Bitcoin will always have that kind of value. So that would be the very important fundamental for Bitcoin, which makes Bitcoin a little bit different than traditional Ponzi scheme, right? So because we're talking about, if we're talking about Ponzi scheme, most of the Ponzi scheme start from one person, right? It's not a decentralized system that Satoshi, obviously, if you are saying Ponzi scheme is a Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, then obviously Satoshi, the guy who issued Bitcoin, would be on the top of this pyramid. He would be the one who started this Ponzi scheme. But the fact is, um, whoever started this Bitcoin has this kind of community, right? It's a group of people. So it's not necessarily like a Ponzi scheme, but it it does have some of the very key traits of Ponzi scheme that I wouldn't deny it. So, but I'm long term. I still think that Bitcoin price is going to go be surge above that $70,000 left price level. I could be wrong, but that's how I view Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin. So I'm viewing like right now recently, Bitcoin price has been dropped below this 40,000 level, which uh, I have been saying this to my clients previously, multiple occasions. I told them it's time to short Bitcoin because Bitcoin is going to hit that $40,000 price level as we are seeing now, and I highly believe that the price of Bitcoin would travel all the way, would surge all the way to $70,000. And should we have that which makes right now a good opportunity to be patient and wait for the price move of Bitcoin. Hopefully Bitcoin is going to hit another rock bottom support, and we'll be able to pile some money in trading some Bitcoin as well. And so that's my view on Bitcoin. And I'm going to talk about a little bit of my view on the global politics and economic side. So obviously, right now, I've been telling this repeatedly that Federal Reserve is making a huge mistake, and they are having these inflation crisis. And a lot of people think, oh, U.S. government is extremely capable of suppressing this amount of inflation. We're talking about 7% inflation. If we look at the number right now, so here, as you can see, right now the United States is having 7% of inflation, and right now we still have these Omicron, virus kind of thing, and I still don't believe that United States of America. I don't believe that Federal Reserve has what it takes to suppress that kind of inflation, uh, in short term. Of course, in the long run, I believe that Fed is capable of suppressing that inflation, but from short-term perspective, we're talking about within 1 year range. I still think that this inflation is going to keep rising, to the point where I know maybe nearly 8 to 10%. If should the inflation rate climb up to nearly 9% to 10%, it's basically a huge disaster, because that means we're going back to 1970s. We're going back to the Paul Volcker age. For who doesn't really know about Mr. Paul Volcker, he was a great man. He served the Federal Reserve as the chief officer, and he was in charge of Federal Reserve and during 1970s, and back then U.S. had a insane inflation rate, which is nearly 10%. And back then, Paul Volcker, he took all this responsibility, and he came out and say, "Hey, inflation is toxic. We cannot stand for this amount of inflation. It's going to be bad for economy system." So he stood out. He done a lot what a lot of Federal Reserve chairmen wouldn't do, which is he was basically launching a war against that inflation bubble, right? So what he did is he raised the interest rate, he raises the basis rates, and and then he put a lot of restriction to investment bankers. He put a lot of restrictions, to limit this over speculating and over leveraging of the financial system, right? He basically was telling all these Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, all these big financial institutions, it's time for you to do nothing, and then it's time for you to remove that leverage out of the financial system, start gambling. You are not going to take advantage of the taxpayers' money and make money and put it in your pocket. He was that kind of brave man. Of course, the United States economy was, having a big setback, but it was necessary. A lot of people complain about it because a lot of companies went defaulting. They were not able to get cheap loan. They were not able to survive. A lot of companies went bankrupt, but in the long run, the economy was able to revive again. And after 1970s, we're seeing a good foundation, a good fundamental of U.S. economy, and then this economy machine keep going on until the year 2000. You have a dot-com bubble. But I would say what Mr. Paul Volcker had done during his time as a Federal Reserve chairman was necessary, right? It would have a bit of setback, but in a longer from longer perspective, longer time horizon perspective, he was doing the right thing. So this is the reason why I kept criticizing about Fed policy, because right now, as you can see, from global perspective, you see all these central bankers. They are all valuating their policy with a very short-term oriented kind of perspective, right? So people are focusing on short-term value instead of insisting long-term value, and that kind of policy is going to lead to further disaster. And a lot of presidents, a lot of leaders around the world wouldn't want to face that, because they started this bubble, and no one wants to blow up the bubble. That means no one wants to launch a war to people who are having houses, people who are already rich and super rich, and already very powerful. They are afraid of breaking that kind of social order. So if my take is that if U.S. inflation rise around like 9 to 10%, that kind of ratio, we're going to see Fed acting very, very quickly, and it's going to raise interest rate for more than 4 times, and it's going to raise interest rate very aggressively, and then they're going to suppress another financial institution from, speculating, gambling. The same thing will repeat in 1970s, and you are going to see stock market correct. You're going to see stock market plummeted, all the asset price plummeted. You're going to see the housing bubble bust. We're not talking about another 2008 financial crisis. I may start having a video just explaining the mechanism of what happened in 2008 financial crisis, but we want to focus now because this inflation could be a trigger of the next financial crisis. So let's just see what's going to happen with Federal Reserve within the next FOMC meeting. So hope you guys enjoyed the content today. Please subscribe, give a thumb to my content if you like it, share to your friends, to people who enjoy the economic reviews and economic contents, and you can also leave your comments below. I will reply them. Thank you for your support. I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.